Welcome to the Self-Publishing School podcast. This is the podcast to listen to if you're an aspiring writer or an author who wants to be more successful. On this show, you'll learn how to write and launch a book successfully, all from the top authors and people just like you who are doing it at the highest level. I'm your host, Chandler Bolt, the founder of Self-Publishing School, the author of the book called Published, and the CEO of selfpublishing.com. For free training on how to publish a book that sells 10,000 copies, go to selfpublishing.com/free training. Hey, Chandler Bolt here, and joining me today is my good friend, John Ruhlin. John is the author of the book Giftology and the founder of the Ruhlin Group, a gift logistics company that help clients like the Chicago Cubs, Wells Fargo, Morgan Stanley, the John Maxwell Company. Basically, if you are legit and you use gifts as part of your business, they help you execute that gifting strategy. John is a legendary, I'm talking legend, like number one out of 1.5 million reps at Cutco, which some people hear Cutco and they think that's amazing, the best sales organization possible, or I don't know, maybe some people don't like it. I think it's it's an amazing organization full of amazingly talented people. And so kind of taking sales skills and relationship building skills and applying those to those skills to books and to business. So today we're going to be talking about how to use a book to grow relationships and to increase referrals for your business. I think John's one of the best at doing this and walking the walk with his book. So John, great to have you here.
Hey Chandler, thanks for having me, brother.
Hey, so let's start with this. Why did you write the book Giftology? And I mean, it is just a core part of your business, and it feels like this book was planting the flag. But why write the book, and why is it such a core part of your business?
Yeah, well, I think that one of the reasons I talked about writing it for a long time because people were asking for it. You know, like I had no desire when I started the business. When I interned with Cutco, I had my buddies like Hal Elrod and others that were like authors and speakers, and I hated speaking, and I couldn't see actually writing a book because I was like, you know, who cares about gifts? Like, they're really anybody going to beyond my grandma going to buy a book about gifts? But I think I had enough clients that started to hire me to speak, and the responses to the stories were good. And then we got asked to be on podcasts, and I'm like, you know, I can't speak everywhere. I can't do every podcast, and I don't really want to travel that much. So I was like, my business partner really was like, if we're going to be the thought leader and own this space, John, you got to suck it up and get over the imposter syndrome and write the book, because this could go places we can't go, and legitimize, the gifting as like a marketing, tool, like idea. It'll legitimize it. So we debated on it for a long time, but finally 5 years ago, we buckled down and did it.
Nice. And what was the trigger moment for you to take it? Because I think so many people can relate. Writing a book is a maybe next year, maybe someday thing.
Yeah.
What was the trigger for you to say, no, this is important now for my business and for me personally?
Well, I think that we were trying to get on stages, and I was, in most cases, I get paid maybe $5,000 to speak, but a lot of times I was speaking for free or begging to speak for free. And I just, I started having more kids. Like at the time I had 2 and a third daughter on the way. And I was like, I just can't go speak more. I need something to go out there and really take people from, gifting. Oh, that's a nice check the box thing, warm fuzzy. Maybe I'll get around to it too. Like, I wanted people to really take it seriously and own that this is a core part of relationship building, because nobody cares about gifts, but everybody cares about relationships. But really it just sounded like a sales pitch. And then we talked to, I went to mastermind talks and started to see other people speak about the power of their book and, the referrals that they got and the doors they got open, and how much, people that weren't as good as speakers as I was were charging more than I was. They're like, this is just like, we got to suck this up. And then eventually we cut the check to decide like, hey, we're going to spend this money on the book launch. And then we invited people to a book launch, to a book that didn't even exist. And that was the line in the sand. Because when you invite your customers to something, and that, I'll give credit to my business partner, who's like really the CFO, COO. Like, he's really more the like, I'm the relationship, vision, marketing, creativity guy. He's the like boots on the ground, like, let's stay in reality. And he's like, if we invite people, we're going to get it done. And sure enough, 6 months later, the book was done. It wasn't necessarily fully printed the way that I wanted it to be printed in all the copies. So we did paperback, which I don't really like. But yeah, when you invite people to something for a book launch, you better have a book, or else you're gonna look stupid.
Wild. And so you paid money, put a deposit down, said, "Hey, we're doing a launch party," and you hadn't even started writing the book.
Mm-mm.
That's awesome. And that was the impetus. That's great. Parkinson's law, right? An object will sell to the amount of time or space that you give it. So you kind of put the deadline there. There's so many things I want to unpack here. I want to circle back to the speaking stuff. I want to circle back, if we have time, to even the high quality printing. Like, there's so many things, but let's talk marketing for a sec. I want to go marketing, business, and kind of tie it all together. It's years later. I feel like you've got momentum rolling. Looking back, what are the 2 or 3 things that have really moved the most copies of the book, and why do you feel like this book sold so well?
Yeah, well, one of the things is the first 50 copies we made were $250 a piece. I believed that most people do the wrong thing when they write a book. There's 30,000 books published on Amazon every week. Most of them sell less than 300 copies, and I was like, I will not be that guy. I want my book to impact 1 million people, not 300 people. So if you write something and it's your life's work, it should be your Bible. Like you think about the Bibles that were printed like 200 years ago, they were like handmade out of leather, and they were like gorgeous because it was like God's word, like the big deal. And if you worked on something for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 50 years, whatever. So, and people, authors, you see this, like they brag about how cheap they print their book. And I'm like, that's the dumbest thing on the planet. Like, this should be like, everybody's got the should read of like 37 books. I don't want mine just to look cool. I want it to be read. So I made it for guys like Gary Vaynerchuk and Seth Godin and John Maxwell and Michael Hyatt, either clients, friends, or people I respected from afar. And the reason this was so important is I mailed this off. I didn't ask for a blurb. I didn't ask them to promote it. I just said, thank you. So each copy, handmade out of leather, monogrammed to them and their spouse. Like, I followed Giftology to a T, in a leather bag, monogrammed, in a linen box with a metal letterhead written with a Sharpie. $250. People made fun of me. Michael Hyatt reached out. He said, John, I get 4,000 to 5,000 books sent to me every year. I've been in publishing for 40 years. Not only did I read your book, my wife Gail read your book, and I ordered 25 copies for my team, and they all had to read the book. So what I would say about marketing is, most people, where everybody goes cheap, I go expensive, and where everybody goes expensive, I go cheap. So I try to find the areas. Like, that's why gifting works, is most people spend $20, I spend 200 or 2,000. Most people will spend all their money on Facebook ads, and there's nothing wrong with any of those things, but $250 doesn't even buy us a round of drinks in Austin or California or anywhere. And so I'd rather spend $250 on one person versus spend whatever $1 on everybody, on 250 people. And so that to me, that got like Darren Hardy to talk about the book. That got Michael Hyatt to ask me onto the podcast. That got, not because I was asking, I was planting seeds and playing the long game. And so I think my marketing plan was, I talked to Hal Elrod from Miracle Morning, who's a mutual friend of ours. And he said, John, I didn't pick up momentum on the book until like year 5. So commit to a 5-year launch plan and do 1 to 3 things that are book related every single week. And if you do that, like, things will work. And so I just looked for those angles. And like, when I saw how well the 50 worked, I started ordering that $250 book 1,000 at a time. Now, they didn't cost $250. They were still expensive. I call them my $100 VIPs. And anytime I'm sending a book after a conversation, I'm not sending the paperback or even the hardcover that's on Amazon. I'm sending the $100 VIP. And now I have it's a 2.0 version and a 3.0 version. Like, I keep ratcheting up what we're doing, because I feel like most people, it's like the flavor of the month, and then they're on to the next thing. And I'm like, this is evergreen, man. Like, this is my anchor. And so I'm constantly thinking about how to the point where my friends who are CEOs, we talk about Brad Weimer, who runs EasyPay, is like, dude, you were a shameless promoter of Giftology. And it came out in 2016. He had this conversation last week. And it's like, that's one of the core parts of my entire business model, is getting people to recognize that we're the leaders across the world. And we've been, even though we're a small company, billion-dollar companies are reaching out, buying the book, or wanting to collaborate with us because of how it's perceived in the marketplace.
So great. I love the long-term view and the 5-year marketing plan. I love that you touched on that, and going deep, not wide. How do you So you've got these multiple versions, like upscale version of the book, and it's kind of the Trojan horse to start conversations, to build relationships. A lot of things we'll be talking about later in this interview. How do you decide who to send those books to? And very candidly, like if I'm someone at home thinking, all right, well, I've got a limited budget, and all right, for some people, I want to just like send them just a regular copy, and if I go this upgrade route, like, all right, this is like, how do you distinguish between the two, or do you just send everyone the high-end book?
I mean, personally, I don't send anything other than the at least the entry level VIP, the $100 VIP, and the reason is like any one of your prospects, if they came to town, you'd likely take them to lunch or dinner. If you get some FaceTime or whatever else, it costs you $100. Like in general, and that's not scalable. Not only did it cost you $100, but it costs you whatever your time's worth. As a consultant, our time's worth $50 an hour, $100 an hour. Like as a speaker, like I've been paid upwards of $100,000 to speak for 60 minutes. So like to me, if I can invest 50 or $100 or $200 and get like somebody to think of me differently, I think that's the thing. Is there's like, I would rather shoot with a laser, rifle versus like most people are doing the shotgun approach. And so the other thing is I've turned that into a profit center. I have people now that are wanting, like Dan Martell is wanting to send out books to different people. Well, he's willing to buy the books because they're packaged so nicely. He's like, I would love to send that out to people. So we've actually turned, well, most people, the book is like a lost leader. But I've been able to do both. And like, yes, we give away a lot of copies, a couple thousand a year, but I also sell, like we're upwards of 100,000 copies sold, which, for the book that, that's not like, we're not Malcolm Gladwell here. We're not J.K. Rowling. Like it's a lot of books. And so I think that understanding the real value of a referral or a lead or a deal, and everybody say that, it's cool because of Vaynerchuk to say we play the long game. Most people's long game is days. My long game is decades. And so I know, like, if I send that book, they might not be even relevant to them, but it's hard to throw away $100 book. It's hard to throw away a $3 business card. It's like I love the things that make it hard and are sticky, because that likelihood of them passing it on to somebody else and then they look cool even if they pass it on because of how it's packaged.
It's so funny you mentioned that. I'm literally in the process of moving right now. And the hardest thing for me about moving is figuring out what I'm going to do with so many books. It's like, man, I can fit my clothes in a couple boxes, but I got boxes and boxes and boxes of books. So I'm figuring out, okay, well, how do I figure out which books to throw out and all that stuff? But anyways, I've got this, kind of this figuring out to throw away pile. And wouldn't you know it, I've got all these books, and bubbling up to the top, 2 copies of Giftology, because it's the nicest, highest quality book I have. And so it bubbles up, and it's like, all right, well, hold up, I can't throw that away. Like, is there someone on my team that I could give it to? Like, which now all of a sudden, within what we're talking about, I am actively referring you business just by feeling guilty to throw away the book because it's so nice.
It's silly. But it's because if everybody published that level of book, it would be noise. It'd be marketing noise. Just like if everybody takes everybody out to steak dinners or golf or sponsors events and all this stuff, none of those things are wrong, but most of those things are table stakes. So I think the question I'm always asking myself, like even our hardcover, I'm like, how do I up level this hardcover? And one of the things we're like, I want somebody to, even if they don't read the book, I want them to be on our email page. So now I spend like $5 on metal bookmarks. They have a leather tassel. They're beautiful. They're like our business cards. People are like, $5 for a bookmark? That's a lot of money. And I'm like, really? Like, what's a lead worth? What's somebody on your email list that could be a client worth? Like, it's and what's funny is that bookmark, I've seen people posting and sharing it on social because it's like, this is like the nicest bookmark I've ever seen. In a book. Nobody has a bookmark. If they do, it's cheap. It's flimsy, it's paper. And so like going all in on the details is like the way to be able to like rise above and bubble to the surface all the time.
I mean, I love that small example too, because when's the last time you got given a bookmark? Maybe years, maybe
by your grandma 20 years ago.
Right. And so now, though, if there's someone like me reading 50 books a year, well, every book that they read, they're going to think of you, not just when they read your book. Right. Because I've been using the same bookmark for years. And I feel like that's probably the same when you give out these books is people get that. It's so nice. They're like, all right, well, I'm going to ditch my one other bookmark that I have. And now this is my go-to bookmark. And every time they see it, they think of you.
Subconsciously, even. Yeah.
Yes. Hey, you've got over 600 reviews on this book on Amazon. How'd you do that? Any tips?
Write a good book, is helpful. And then I would say ask, but you don't ask, like most people ask too soon, and you probably teach this. It's like, and Phil Jones, I think, teaches it as well. It's like when somebody compliments the book, you say, thank you. Say, what did you learn? What was helpful? What did you take away? What was the nuggets? Of course, they oftentimes, now you're in a dialogue, they respond. And if you do that once or twice, then you say, hey, probably don't have time, but if you have 37 seconds, one of the best things you can do is what you just put there was incredible. If you'd take the time to leave that exactly where you said it is perfect on Amazon, it makes an impact on other people finding it. And the amount of people that have never left a review for any book before, but they leave one for Giftology is super high because I didn't go for the kill right away. And I actually take the time personally on my own social accounts to do that. And to me, like, people judge a book by its cover. They do judge, they're like 650 some reviews. Are you kidding? Like there's books that have sold way more books than mine that have way less reviews. So it's like anything else. Like I want to play at like a king level, and there's a handful of markers that you can control. And that's one of them that I think a lot of people like, they just think, it doesn't matter. I got over 100. I'm like, that's cool. 100's cool. My next mark is I want to be a comma. I love the comma. Get me to 1,000, baby. And then Hal's got like 3,000 or 4,000. I'm like, I can't compete with that, but I'm on my way.
Yeah, that's great. I love that. And magic words. Would you mind taking 2 seconds to copy and paste that into a review? Here's the link. Just the amount, it's so simple, but it's the amount of reviews that you get from that is, I think, really powerful. Let's talk, switching gears a little bit to the business side. We already touched on this a good bit, but can you unpack at a high level, what is the Giftology method, and how can authors use this methodology to sell more books, to grow their business?
Yeah. Well, I alluded to at the beginning. I mean, nobody wakes up at 4 a.m. doing their miracle morning being like, oh man, if I just got my gifting strategy together, I just like my business would flourish. But the simple fact is, whether you're an author, speaker, billion-dollar company, every business, every author, every speaker, their business rises and falls on relationships. It could be relationships with media, influencers, authors, event planners, CEOs, clients, employees. Like, it's human beings. And most of the time, people, if they're honest with themselves, they suck at showing gratitude consistently to the relationships that matter. They just don't have you ask them what their marketing plan is, their business plan is, like maybe they have it, maybe they don't. You ask them what their relationship plan is, and nobody has one. So the core of what we teach is, instead of just spending money on Facebook ads, or whatever else, you should have a program. You should reinvest. Our methodology is 5 to 15% of net profits back into your relationships to keep them, to grow them, and to turn them into sales reps. And part of that gifting budget for us is books. That's why we spend so much on the book. It's like, if we're going to do a gift, it's not going to be a tchotchke with some logo on it. It's going to be a really thoughtful gift. It's going to include their family. It's, like when I send, gifts to certain people, like I always include their spouse or their assistant. And so, I mean, if your tribe wants to know what our blueprint is of like how we think about, gifting year round, how much to spend, who to take care of, they can go to giftologysystem.com and literally download our entire playbook of what we charge tens of thousands to take companies through. But the methodology is the same. Even if, like, I have author buddies that are speakers that will use us to outsource their gifting to, because they're like, they have their top 50 or their top 100. And so what I would say is, like, figure out, like, if you're a consultant and you made 100 grand last year, you should be, reinvesting 5 to 15 grand back into those people. That means you get to keep 85 grand. And the people you're investing in bought their own gifts, or they bought their own book, but you're actually like making it a math equation to think through. And the goal is not like, just to feel good, like the goal would be next year you should do 150 grand. Like you plant seeds, and whether you believe in a God or not, like God's taught us, like if you invest and plant seeds, you reap what you sow, and oftentimes it's 10x or 100x. But most people, like, they hold back, they play scared, they play scarcity mindset, and because of that, they miss out on what could happen if they went all in versus like playing mediocre to the masses.
That's so great. You have in line with this, and you talked about the system as a whole. I'm pretty sure, if I'm remembering correctly, you got kind of a controversial view on Christmas gifts or holiday gifts and stuff like that. Can you touch on that? Because I think sometimes when people think gifts, they think, oh, birthday, Christmas, anniversary, insert, Valentine's, whatever else. Like, can you differentiate between the two and kind of share your thoughts?
Yeah, we've been written up in like New York Times as like the Grinch that wants to kill Christmas, which is ironic for a gifting agency, like somebody that, that helps people do done for you gifting. And it's not that I'm anti-gratitude, generosity, I'm anti-obligation and expectation. So I think the worst time to give a gift, I say no ABC gifting. So no anniversaries, birthdays, Christmas. If you have a wife or a significant other and you only take care of that person on anniversaries, Valentine's Day, Christmas, like those are table stakes. Like you don't earn brownie points. That's just like kind of expected. Same thing within business. Like if you send out a book at an expected time, like I never tell somebody I'm sending them this VIP book. Why? You ruin half the impact of the gift, which is it's the Ritz-Carlton mindset, surprise and delight. If it's expected, if you give a gift after a deal's done, after a referral's given, like, hey, I want to be one of the 50 gifts that's ready to clap somebody's table at Christmas. Frick, no. Like, I don't want to be competing with anybody. So the best time to send a gift is just because. The best time to send a book is just because. And so I see so many people that will send out, books at launch time. They'll send out 50 or 100 or 200 books. They're sent vanilla form letters. And then like 6 months later, they're not sending out any more books. It's like, are you an idiot? You spent all this time and money to build this tool. Why? Like, it should be an ongoing strategy. And if anything, it should be getting better. Like you should be like taking profits and reinvesting it back in to make your book better, your packaging better, your notes. And a lot of times, like I speak to EO and YPO all the time. They buy the Giftology book. I don't give it to them. They pay for it, and full price, $25 up to $100. And then we package it with a gift as well. I call them love bombs. Put the gift with the book, and people are like, why would they do that and pay you to speak? And I'm like, because all these events are virtual now. Instead of buying alcohol and paying like, Jimmy Fallon to come, promote or whatever else, like they have money that they are able to reinvest back into other things. And so we're taking the book experience with the gift experience, and we don't give it out at the event. We mail it out. I did it probably 18 times last year for EO, YPO, and groups like that. And they get this like $200 to $500 package showing up. And now people are reading the book before I speak. They're experiencing oftentimes, custom knife set, whatever it is. And they get it. And now they're coming to the talk already pre-sold. They're excited. I'm able to engage. And we just did an event in EO for EO. We did this exact same thing. And they said, John, normally we get like 100 people at like once a year at a holiday party because it's food, alcohol, people are together, they're partying. EO is a bunch of CEOs, entrepreneurs. They're like, John, we have 94 RSVPs to your talk. Like the Giftology guide, really? Like, why did that happen? Well, they invested in all 180 members. They invested these love bombs, and one of them was the book. And so people got it. They're put it on social media. They're curious. And they showed up to the event in record numbers. And it's not like I'm like, The Rock, like I don't have like this celebrity status, but the way it showed up made people curious and engaged and wanted to take time to come to the event.
That's so great, man. I love that. So many great takeaways there. And I wholeheartedly agree. When giving becomes an expectation, it's no longer a gift, right? So how do you surprise and delight, like you said, outside of the expected? I'll share this real quick thing that I think you might actually like. This is super smart. This is the Giftology approach, but I just got this. It's this thing from Elevation Church, and it's like basically a letter from Pastor Stephen. And in it, I'm like, this is so smart. They're really good at marketing. But it says, it's this little thing that it says for your ears only. And it looks like a credit card, and but it's a QR code, and you scan it, and it's their record that's coming out. And I think now it's a week from now, but they send it out weeks ahead of time. This methodology to a T, right? It's surprising delight. It's unexpected. It's a pre-experience. I feel exclusive and special. I've told so many people about this album that's coming out. When you scan the QR code, now you can actually they're smart, right? You can pre-buy it. You can pre-save it on Spotify. You can all the things.
Yeah.
And there's just so much pent up demand for when this launch is happening.
Yep.
I bet this thing probably cost them $1. I mean, this is like the cheap version of what you're talking about.
Yep.
But wildly effective. Yeah. It's crazy. Hey, couple final questions for you. I could talk all day about this stuff. Hey, Chandler Bolt here. I hope you're loving this episode so far. It's time to go from inspiration to implementation. All right. So if you've learned something, we want to help you implement what you've learned with your book. So what I want you to do right now is go to selfpublishing.com/schedule, book a publishing consultation with one of the experts on my team. We'll talk about your goals for your book, your dreams, your challenges, your next steps, and we'll start putting together a plan. All right, so go to selfpublishing.com/schedule, book a call with the team. Let's see how we can help with your book. It's time to implement. Can you talk about how do you strategically use the book to drive referrals? How do you look at that? When do you put it in the process? What does that look like?
Yeah. Well, what I'd say is that, like we just did something with Nick Nanton, who's, made a bunch of documentaries, just made a documentary with Giovanni, works with Tony Robbins. He's got a great clientele list. He's somebody that, it'd be one thing and he's a client, he sent gifts to different people and loves what we do. And, the difficult thing is making it as easy as possible for somebody to open doors and share. People all they don't have time. They're just busy. Everybody's busy, especially somebody that's a CEO. And so one of the things I've done is I did this with Hal too. I said, Hal, who are the 25 people that are most important in your life that I could make you look really good to, that would cost you nothing and will handle everything for you? And I offered to comp the $100 version of the book. And then I also offered to have my team handwrite all the notes. And I gave him wording that he could tweak to make it. So he sent out 25 books to a number of people. And wouldn't you know it, so did John Bowen, and so did whoever else. So when I spoke it for Robin Robbins, who's got huge, multi 8-figure mastermind, she got the book from 3 different people that she respected unintentionally from me. And she went from not knowing who Giftology or John Ruhlin was to being who the hell is John Ruhlin and how do we get him on our stage? And so that turned into, $30,000 speaking fee. Plus they became a client. Why? Well, I made it easy for other people to brag. And really the bragging was sending out the book, but they didn't have to pay for the book. In that case, they didn't have to handwrite the notes, all the things that make it a hassle. We just eliminated all of that and said, hey, pick your 25 that you want to just have a fun, loving touch point to. And you like the book, you like me, I'll just make it super easy. And so I do that at least 2 to 3 times a month, where I'll find somebody, like a you or like a Pete. Pete's done it, and they love it because they get all the text messages oh, I love this book, or this is packaged so amazing, or holy crap. And so they look cool, they get all the credit, but then what does it do? It basically is them endorsing, it transfers the social capital, and not all of them turn into anything, but if 1 out of 25 do, it pays for everything times 10. And so we do that when we've been doing it for a long time. And other people, I think sometimes we'll mimic it maybe once a year, which is fine. But to me, it's week in, week out, month in, month out. I'm trying to find the right people to be able to offer that to. And not everybody takes us up on it, but a lot do. Yeah. And it works.
That's so smart. And I've seen Michael Hyatt do this well. we do this as well. It's not exactly what you're talking about. I think that's even smarter how you're doing it, but a simplified version of like we have it's self-publishingschool.com/friend. So we tell our people, it's like, hey, if you ever know someone, your friend who says, hey, you're writing a book, how are you doing that? Just send them that link. We'll ship them a book on your behalf. You look cool. And if they sign up for self-publishing school, they save money because you sent them there, right? Or like little things like that. I know Hyatt does the same thing with his business accelerator program, where it's, okay, know someone that might be a fit for this. Well, the first ask is not like, let us call them. It's let us send them a book, a full focus planner, like essentially a love bomb, like you're talking about.
Yeah.
And so I think it's just so smart to embed that in the referral program process. And then I love what you do and kind of how this integrates with you know, a book. It greases the wheels of the sales process because you don't have to spend so much time explaining what you do. The book explains it, and then it greases the wheels of the onboarding process. So it saves your team time because you don't have to onboard clients as thoroughly, because you can just say, hey, read the book and then they're up to speed. So you've got a higher close rate and lower time per client to spend onboarding by having the book do the heavy lifting of the methodology for you.
Yeah.
Smart.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, and and it strengthens the relationship of the person who you want to go out there and talk more about. Like I think a lot of people have passive referral relationships, and I'm like, if I can turn all of my clients into active referral sources versus passive, most people wait. It's like the financial advisor. Like most people's financial advisor only gets referrals when somebody says, hey, who's your financial guy? Or versus flipping the script is, how do I get my clients to go bring up financial services or books or widgets or insurance or whatever. Like most people, it's not an active, it's a passive process, and they miss out.
That's smart. You're making me think right now. I'm about to do an updated and revised version of Published. I'm like, how have my most recent book published? And I'm like, how have I not thought about this? I need to send a copy to all past clients of SPS as like the preview copy before the new book comes out. That's a great idea. Hey, I'm going to rapid fire a couple more because I'm just curious about a bunch of things that you talked about throughout this.
Yeah.
You talked about, creating a high quality book. Any tips for authors who want to do that? And how can you cost effectively create a high quality book? I know you have all different kinds, whether it's leather bound, whether there's like the red carpet style velvet inside that. I mean, it really is a high quality book. Anything you've learned the hard way or tips on how to make the book feel more quality while also not breaking the bank while doing it?
Yeah. I mean, there's some things that like just the material on the outside matters. The simplicity of the design. Like when we did it, we hired a couple different designers because I just didn't like the design. The first person that did the outside cover, I was just like, this just feels busy. It did feel kind of bland. And then the other thing is giving yourself permission to keep reiterating. I mean, if you own the rights, the IP, like initially when I published the book, there was a knife on it. There's no knife anymore. And it was like, I don't want to be, like, yes, we do millions of dollars in knives, but I don't want that necessarily to be on the cover. And it felt like maybe over time, it just didn't feel like the level I wanted to be at. And so we took it off. That's the beauty of owning the IP and owning the rights to do it. And so we keep evolving it. But the red lining was something I was like, I think I kind of modeled some of the stuff that we did off of Jeffrey Gitomer. Like his books always felt different. They felt higher end. They felt playful.
Yeah.
The little red book of selling. And I just wanted that, like almost like a Jimmy Choo shoe. It's like $1,000 pair of heels. What's on the bottom? It's red. Yeah. And it was just something that would pop. It was something that was different. And we just looked for ways to say, like, if this was a fashion brand or a Apple product or if you say you're, like best in class, world class, first class, then like thinking about some of the little details. And does it really cost that much to line it with red? No. Maybe it's an extra 20 cents or something. I don't know. But the extra cover might be an extra $1. And so like, all in, it's going to cost you a few dollars more, $5 more, or $10 more. But to me, like, you don't have to be at $100 in order to have what my overall feeling was, I wanted to be nicer than any other traditionally published book. Because I was like, I want to be playing at the level of the Simon & Schuster's. And actually, I hate dust jackets. So I'm like, I'm going to be better. And so, and that's the beauty of being in 2021 is you can self-publish a book and actually be nicer than the $1 billion companies.
Yes.
So,
hey, how do you use your book to get to raise your speaking fee and to get booked for so many speaking gigs? Because I feel like your fee is going up so much, and I look at that, and even I mean, I do a lot of speaking, and I'm like, man, John is at a whole nother level. Like any tips for myself or for other speakers looking to level up their speaking fee and inbound speaking requests using a book?
yeah, well, I would say that, similar to what I just said, like make sure that what you do, like if it feels like a cheap brochure, then they're not going to take your speaking very seriously because they're like, you're a pitch person versus you're a sales rep versus, and
Yep.
I've always said I'm a business owner who happens to speak, and I cap my speaking. I only speak live in person 20 times a year. That makes people say, whoa, I can only, like it gives me the permission to say no. It gives me the permission to say that's not the right fit, not right audience. And it lets people know, like, I'm not doing unlimited gigs. And so the book's high end. And part of it is like being just bold enough to say, like, my message and, my craft is worth it. Like, there's a lot of times I see people that are charging 150 grand. Are they, 7 times better than somebody that's at like, 20 grand? No, oftentimes they're not, but their platform, their notoriety, their boldness, their whatever is like, and so speaking is one of those weird, interesting things is like, whatever the price is, the price is. And I realized that early on, because when I published the book, I went from 5 to 10. Did anything change in my speaking or my talk? Nothing. And I increased it by 100%. Why? Because I was like, I it gave me the confidence to ask for more. And then I'd also just say, like, you start hanging out with, you or Pete Vargas or, the Jesse Itzlers and the Sarah Blakeleys and these kind of people, Darren Hardy, you're like, dang, like those guys are just consistently asking for 50 or 100 or 200 grand or 500 grand. And just by very nature, you're like, I can't ask for 500 grand, but I can ask for 50. Like that's 1/10 the amount. And so like, I think that the more you surround yourself with people that make you feel small, it also raises your game and gives you confidence to be able to ask for what you really feel like you're bringing to the table.
That's great. John, what would be your parting piece of advice for, the John from 7 years ago, pre-book, or all the other Johns out there that are thinking about writing and publishing their first book, knowing what now, what would be kind of your parting piece of advice for those folks?
Well, I would say that if I hadn't drawn the line in the sand and invited people, I would still be tweaking the book. It wouldn't be out. In fact, my wife, who keeps me very humble, like she even said, she's like, John, I never would have published Giftology. Like you could have tweaked this and done this differently. Like she was like, through her eyes, and she's right. The original version could have been better. But what I would say is that like, there's definitely like life before the book and life after the book. And I think that, if you are playing the long game in decades, then, and you've done something worthy, you've done something that's worth writing about, you've done something, and don't just judge. Sometimes we have imposter syndrome, but if other people are like, your stuff is really good and I would pay, you're being paid to speak, you're being paid to consult, then I would say that like, do yourself a favor, set aside the dollars and, commit yourself. And if you have to, pick a date 6 months from now and invite all the people that you don't want to look stupid to, all your friends and clients and relationships, to the launch party, because that was the only way that got me to commit and say, holy crap, I better get this thing done.
I love that. The power of public accountability. And even just posting, I'm writing a book. Who's coming to my launch party 6 months from now? That's great. John, this has been so great, man. Where can people go to find out more about you, the Giftology message, method to purchase the book, all that good stuff?
Yeah, well, I mean, the book we get on Amazon. That's like the #1 place by far. But as far as consulting and gifting services, all that kind of stuff, Giftology Group. And if you want to follow me, I'm at John Ruhlin on Instagram. Those are kind of the 2 places to track me down.
Nice. And you said the place where they can go download the kind of the resource. What was it that you're?
Our entire playbook. is Giftology System, giftologysystem.com.
Awesome. John, you're the man. Thank you.
Chandler, it's been fun, brother.
Thank you so much for watching or listening to this episode of the Self-Publishing School podcast. I know there's so many places that you can be spending your time. There's other podcasts that you could be listening to, YouTube channels that you could be watching. So thank you so much. It means the world. Now, I want you to do 3 things right now if you found this episode helpful. All right, number 1, I don't know if you know this, but we've got a YouTube channel. It's a companion channel to this podcast. All the video versions of the episode are on the YouTube channel. So number 1, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Number 2, if you're listening to this podcast wherever, whether this is Spotify, Apple Podcasts, number 2, I want you to subscribe to this podcast right now so you don't miss a future episode. And then number 3, this is probably the most important, leave a review on the podcast. All right, reviews are super important and help the podcast get discovered by other people. So number 3, leave a review on the podcast. Thank you so much. I'll see you in the next episode. If you're on the fence about scheduling a publishing consultation call with my team, maybe you're not quite ready for that, I've got some free training that I think will be really helpful for you. All right, all you have to do is go to register to sign up. Go to selfpublishing.com/free training. When you do, you're also going to get a free digital copy of my new book published. And on that training, you're going to learn the next steps, so how to implement with your book. So how to write, how to publish, how to launch successfully. So go to register right now at selfpublishing.com/free training. I'll see you there.